On this Wednesday night, the most contagious form of COVID yet.
It probably crept already through our door.
What doctors know about this new Omicron subvariant. A murdered Ontario police officer laid to rest.
Greg died a hero, and he lived as an inspiration.
Poignant tributes for Constable Greg Pierzchala. Canada's first National Ribbon Skirt Day.
I feel proud.
Celebrating Indigenous women and traditions, and the young girl who inspired it. Packing away the parka and breaking out the shorts, Europe's unusually warm winter. And unstoppable.
Hockey for us is the life.
Ukrainian athletes powering forward during the war.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Sophie Louie.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with the growing concern over a new subvariant of Omicron. Its scientific name is XBB.1.5, but some have nicknamed it the Kraken subvariant. It's the latest mutation of the highly contagious Omicron wave that emerged just over a year ago. 21 cases have now been detected here in Canada. In our top story tonight, Mackenzie Gray looks at where it's already seeing rapid growth.
It's a new year and there's a new subvariant. The latest spin-off of Omicron is XBB.1.5. It's the most transmissible COVID strain yet, and it's come to Canada.
We've had, I think, 5 as of last week, so there'll probably be more. We've seen every variant that's out there. So we know that it'll come here.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says there's been 21 cases nationally, but with a lack of widespread testing, experts believe the numbers are likely much higher.
It probably crept already through our door, and it's probably done so within the last month, right under our noses, without us being able to adequately monitor, survey, or report on it.
The new subvariant has been found in Asia and Europe, but it's in the U.S. where it's spreading most rapidly. At the beginning of December, it made up just 1.3% of all COVID cases, but by the end of the month, it was over 40% and climbing.
Is just a smarter variant at infecting and breaking through walls of immunity.
One thing still unknown, how severe the new strain is.
We don't have any data on severity yet or on the clinical picture, but we also do not have an indication that severity has changed.
To stop the spread of not only the new subvariant but other illnesses, schools in U.S. cities like Philadelphia and Boston are bringing back mask mandates.
I've had COVID myself. He has a cough now, so we're dealing with it.
But so far, few Canadian school boards have followed suit. Hamilton Public Schools re-implemented a mask mandate in December, but students are allowed to opt out with parental approval.
It's important to recognize that while COVID isn't going anywhere, the tools to protect ourselves and to create safer indoor environments are also the same as well.
Despite the subvariant's prolific ability to spread, public health experts still say that the combination of antibodies from prior infections and high levels of vaccination mean that the massive winter COVID waves of the past won't be replicated this year. Sophie?
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa tonight. Thanks, Mackenzie. The World Health Organization is using its first news conference of the year to highlight the importance of new life-saving antivirals in the fight against COVID-19. The first generic version of an antiviral has received WHO approval, and the hope is increased production will lead to better access for lower and middle income countries. But there are still major inequities in access to testing and vaccination. And the WHO Director General warns the threat of COVID-19 persists.
And ultimately, COVID-19 remains a dangerous virus to our health, economies, and societies overall. Every week, approximately 10,000 people die of COVID-19 that we are aware of. The true toll is likely much higher.
Tomorrow, the WHO will hold a wider briefing on the global COVID-19 situation, along with member states and Chinese scientists as cases there surge. An Ontario Provincial Police officer killed in the line of duty last week was laid to rest today. Hundreds of officers and their families gathered for a procession to pay their final respects to Constable Greg Pierzchala. The 28-year-old was killed in a shooting ambush while responding to a call for a vehicle in a ditch. Today, as his hearse made its way through Barrie, The cold, blustery morning matched the mood on the streets.
Things happen. We don't know why and when they happen, but they chose a career that they want to do, and we thank them for it because our society needs police. You know, it's devolving into chaos, so it's good to have them to keep everything straight.
It was an emotional day. As Mike Drolet reports, Pierzchala is being remembered as so much more than just a police officer.
The Barrie, Ontario arena was filled to capacity, yet you could hear a pin drop as the colleagues of Constable Greg Pierzchala raised his casket to their shoulders before the bagpipers led them in. A solemn end to the remarkable life of a young man who decided at the age of 5 he wanted to be a police officer. Pierzchala was a gifted athlete, wrestling competitively in university before eventually joining the OPP. He set the bar high in everything he did, which his brother Michael says wasn't always easy to live up to.
Through the example he set, he made you want to be a better person. He made you want to make your own life better.
December 27th was a big day for Pierzchala. For the first time, he was allowed to work alone. He was responding to what should have been a routine call. A vehicle was in the ditch just south of Hamilton. When he approached, he was shot and killed. He was just 28 years old.
Losing Greg this way, on the same day he learned he passed his probationary period, on the same day he would become the officer he always dreamed of being, it's cruel beyond words.
2 people were arrested and charged with first-degree murder after a short manhunt. One of the 2, 25-year-old Randall Mackenzie, was out on bail for assaulting an officer in 2021, leading an outraged OPP commissioner to call Pierzchala's death senseless and preventable. He's the 5th officer to be killed in Canada while on duty since mid-September. Once again, we're left to wonder what could have been for a promising career, while a close-knit and proudly Polish family struggles with the loss of a son and brother.
Greg became one of my greatest teachers, and I can't even imagine how much more I could have learned. Greg died a hero.
Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
In the U.S. Capitol today, it seems like political deja vu, but what's happening has very real consequences. One of the 3 branches of the American government is essentially offline right now, as there's a stalemate over electing a new Speaker of the House. Drama and dispute within the Republican Party is playing out in vote after vote. Washington Bureau Chief Jackson Proskow takes us through the turmoil.
It happened again.
A speaker has not been elected.
And again.
A speaker has not been elected.
And again.
A speaker has not been elected.
As the stalemate within the Republican Party blocked leader Kevin McCarthy's path to the Speaker's chair for a second straight day.
Sir, you do not have the votes, and it's time to withdraw.
Once again, the House adjourned without a decision. A repeat of the day before.
A speaker has not been elected.
When McCarthy lost 3 other rounds of voting.
A speaker has not been elected.
The historic humiliation was delivered by 20 far-right Republicans who've denied McCarthy the 218 votes he needs. They refuse to budge, demanding their party make fundamental changes.
Do you think that the American people support the status quo? Yes or no?
McCarthy's opponents are so entrenched they ignored the pleas of former President Donald Trump and the vast majority of Republican members.
If we continue down this road, if we continue with the actions of yesterday and today, we stifle the will of the American people.
The result is not just one-party dysfunction, but government gridlock.
That's not my problem. I just think it's a little embarrassing it's taking so long in the way they're dealing with one another.
Without a speaker, no member of the House can be sworn in and no business can take place. Yet it's no longer clear any speaker will be able to conquer the deep divide within the newly elected Republican majority.
This now seems to be a complete test of wills, and there are furious negotiations underway behind the scenes to try and end the impasse, but it's just not clear how that's going to happen. And even if Kevin McCarthy were to drop out of the running, it's not clear who a consensus candidate might be. One sense of just how deeply divided these two factions of the Republican Party are is that one group has now written to the group that oversees administration of the Capitol building to complain about the fact that McCarthy actually moved his belongings into the Speaker's office over the weekend without actually winning the job. Sophie, they're essentially accusing him of squatting at this point.
Fascinating. All right. Thanks for that. Jackson Prosco in Washington tonight. Thanks, Jackson. The mastermind behind a huge U.S. college admissions bribery scheme has been sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. Rick Singer's punishment is the longest handed down in the scandal that involves celebrities, prominent business people, and parents. More than 50 people have been convicted. Singer pleaded guilty nearly 4 years ago to bribing exam administrators and coaches to get undeserving students into elite schools. He also helped officials build a case against others through secret recordings with wealthy parents who paid big money to get their kids in school. California declares a state of emergency. Coming up, the brutal super soaker barreling toward the state. Plus, feeling the heat, the record-breaking temperatures warming up Europe. And distracted fighting, why Moscow is blaming its own troops for the deadliest attack on Russian forces. Californians are bracing for the latest powerful storm as another atmospheric river hits the Golden State with heavy winds and up to 20 centimeters of rain forecast for some areas over the next 2 days. The state's governor has now declared a state of emergency ahead of worsening conditions to strengthen response and recovery efforts. In San Francisco, residents have already hunkered down with sandbags and supplies. The U.S. National Weather Service warns it will be a brutal system that could bring widespread flooding, power outages, and likely loss of human life. Europe, meanwhile, is facing wild weather of its own. Unusually high temperatures are sweeping through the continent, smashing many records this week. On New Year's Day, multiple countries recorded their warmest January day ever. That includes Poland and the Czech Republic, which both reported temperatures hovering around 19 Celsius, while Spain and France saw temperatures around 25 degrees. Redmond Shannon has more on the implications of this unseasonably warm weather.
Sarajevo's Olympic ski resort with nothing to ski on. Spanish sunbathing on the 11th day of Christmas. These are the dog days of a winter warm spell. January temperature records are not just being broken, but incinerated across Europe.
Yeah, it's like nice weather for biking, but we know it's like the planet is burning, so.
These January records come after a year when England registered 40 degrees Celsius for the first time ever. In fact, 2022 was the hottest year in record here in the UK, in France and in Spain.
Climate change is making these extremes more frequent and making heat waves more intense.
Europe's rising mercury has caused a fall in demand for natural gas. EU storage levels are high after countries stocked up in the wake of the invasion of Ukraine. It's easing immediate fears over how Europe can wean itself off Russian gas. That trade did drop sharply last year, and then the Nord Stream 1 pipeline was taken out by apparent sabotage. Also, there are fears the Kremlin could fully cut supply at any time.
It takes a while to completely transition an energy. And to do that, they're going to have to keep working at the pace they are, if not accelerated. My concern is that a warmer winter, which is giving some breathing space, is going to lead to a warmer summer.
Professor Grant Walk says Russia's invasion has spurred Europe to speed up its transition away from fossil fuels. In the interim, Europe is buying liquefied natural gas from the US and Qatar, as this winter is far from over.
If there is a shutdown of the pipelines by Russia, that again could contribute to some issues in terms of supply.
Europe's warmer weather may have just delayed its energy headache until next winter. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Playing with pride ahead, a Ukrainian hockey team's journey to get back on the ice. Popular Iranian actress Taraneh Aladousti has been released from prison on bail. She was welcomed by friends with flowers nearly 3 weeks after being jailed for supporting anti-government protests. Aladousti had condemned what's believed to be the first known execution linked to the protests. The actress is among several Iranian celebrities who criticized the regime's violent crackdown on dissent. Nationwide protests erupted last September after the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in police custody. Russia says its own troops are to blame for a deadly Ukrainian rocket attack early New Year's Day. Russia claims the unauthorized use of cell phones led to the airstrike on housing quarters in the occupied Donetsk region. The military says phone signals allowed Ukrainian forces to pinpoint the location of Russian personnel. The Kremlin also raised the death toll to 89. Ukraine has suggested around 400 Russian soldiers were actually killed in the attack. Well, 10 months since Russia invaded, and Ukraine is proving its national hockey teams won't be stopped by the war. For the last 2 weeks, the men's under-25 team has been playing exhibition games against Western Canadian universities, preparing for a big international tournament later this month. Focusing on hockey while war rages back at home hasn't been easy, but as Heather Urix-West reports, the Ukrainian team is playing with more pride than ever.
After a year of so much stress and heartache, Ukraine's under-25 national men's hockey team ended 2022 with a little fun.
Let's go, Calgary!
I'm like, oh, we're actually going to the NHL game. It's like the dream came true.
Watching the Flames host Vancouver on New Year's Eve was a rare treat for this squad. But this four-city Canadian tour isn't just about watching hockey. They came to play.
It's a good feeling, when you come here, it's cold and it feels like hockey.
A feeling no one on this ice takes for granted. When the Russian invasion began last winter, Ukraine's national hockey program went dark. For weeks, the war kept every player off the ice. But over time came opportunities outside Ukraine to get back to the game.
For 45 days, I think, the senior team was preparing in Hungary, and under 18, they had the camp in Czech Republic and in Switzerland.
Now the under-25 team is in Canada, playing a series of exhibition games against university teams in Saskatoon, Calgary, Edmonton, and Winnipeg, all in preparation for the Winter University Games in Lake Placid, New York, later this month.
Hockey for us is the life, and I think it's just one fun for us right now.
Because the war at home is always on their mind. Monday morning, the team awoke to news of this: a Russian missile destroying yet another of the country's hockey arenas.
It was a home ice rink for many of us. For example, Andriy played there for 6 years.
It's why each player on this team wears the blue and yellow with pride. After a year with so much destruction, against all odds, they're keeping the spirit of hockey in Ukraine alive. Heather Urix-West, Global News, Calgary.
Indigenous pride on display. Next, celebrating Canada's first National Ribbon Skirt Day. Indigenous communities in Canada marked a milestone today on the path toward reconciliation. It was the first ever National Ribbon Skirt Day, an opportunity to celebrate an important symbol of Indigenous culture. Turia Isri explains the significance of these sacred skirts and introduces us to the Saskatchewan girl who inspired this special day.
Bold colors, rich patterns, intricate designs. The styles may vary, but each strand carries a special meaning.
I just feel really happy when I wear my ribbon skirt.
12-year-old Isabella Kulak and her mother are especially happy on the first National Ribbon Skirt Day, a day Isabella inspired.
Now everybody could wear their ribbon skirts with pride without feeling ashamed.
She felt shame 2 years ago when it was formal wear day at her school in southeastern Saskatchewan. Isabella wore a ribbon skirt to celebrate her identity as a member of Cody First Nation. It's a sacred piece of clothing representing resilience and strength. But a teaching assistant told Isabella her ribbon skirt was not formal enough.
They said it was inappropriate. So instead of turning this into a negative, we thought we'd turn it into a positive to educate the school division.
The school apologized to Isabella and her family, but the story resonated online and across the country, eventually making its way to the Senate.
Isabella, I want to tell you that there are senators wearing their ribbon skirts.
Manitoba Senator Mary Jane McCallum's bill declaring January 4th the first National Ribbon Skirt Day received royal assent last month.
I still can't get over it. It's an overwhelming feeling. Super proud of my little girl.
In a statement, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said every year from now on, January 4th will be an opportunity for us all to learn more about and to celebrate Indigenous cultures, traditions, histories, and contributions to this diverse country. The federal government formally recognized Orange Shirt Day in 2021 as a way to highlight Indigenous culture and honor residential school survivors. Indigenous leaders believe Ribbon Skirt Day is another sign children are leading the way.
I feel very humbled knowing that, our children are speaking up.
I'm excited and I feel proud.
Pride and resilience woven into every ribbon. Taria Isri, Global News, Ottawa.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday night. I'm Sophie Louie. Tonight's Your Canada is Edmonton, where this lovely New Year's greeting made of ice took about a week to finish. Thanks for watching tonight. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Have a great night.